In Atlanta, I worked at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, which, as you know, is the nation's public health agency. Many people don't know that in addition to addressing things like flu and Ebola, the CDC also has a division of violence prevention, and that is because violence is a leading cause of injury and death in this country. So for that reason, it requires a public health approach, and the goal is to truly prevent the violence, to stop it before it even starts. In the Division of Violence Prevention, I led the CDC's National Domestic Violence Prevention Program. In that role, I got to see what violence prevention looks like in states and communities across the country. And I learned a lot of things there that have carried through in my role at Stand Strong here in California. For one thing, I learned more about a program called Coaching Boys into Men. We are very fortunate to be implementing this program in San Luis Obispo County. This is a program working with high school-aged male athletes, building on their strengths as leaders and influencers in their peer groups to change the culture on that team, in that school, in their peer group, in their community. The characteristics that athletes often learn on the field or on the court, such as leadership, respect, and cooperation, can also translate into skills for promoting healthy relationships, whether it's with others in their life, parents, peers, and current or future romantic partners. As you discussed, it's not always that romantic partner, it could be friends. Since Coaching Boys into Men began in 2001, thousands of coaches around the world have signed on. And what's even more exciting is that this program has been rigorously tested and evaluated, and the results are some very encouraging outcomes. In this study that included 16 high schools and over 2,000 athletes, the results showed that athletes who participated in the program not only had greater intentions to intervene when they saw abusive and disrespectful behavior among their peers, but they actually did speak up and intervene in these situations at higher rates than those who had not been through the program. Not only that, but even a year after completing the program, those who had participated in the program had lower rates of abuse perpetration and lower rates of passively allowing abuse to happen among their peers. So this research tells us that yes, it really is possible to stop gender-based violence before it starts, and that yes, we are on the right track. In San Luis Obispo County, we're implementing this program in 2 high schools so far, one Catholic high school and one public high school. At one of the schools, we are working with a volleyball, a golf, and a baseball team right now, and we're adding football in the fall. Although it's early on, we're already seeing some anecdotal evidence of the impact that this program is having. Coaches have shared that they've noticed differences in their teams, mostly in the language that they use and how they hold each other accountable for their actions and for their words. They've also noticed this program bringing teams together and getting them to communicate on a deeper level. One coach shared that after discussing harmful language during one of their Coaching Boys into Men sessions, one student actually called another one out when he started making fun of his teammate. Another coach has seen older players rise to leadership roles in the program, sometimes leading discussions on these topics, sometimes for over 30 minutes. He said it's obvious that the athletes want to talk about these topics, but many of them have never been given the opportunity or the tools to communicate their thoughts and feelings to one another prior to this program. Another coach shared that when he overheard a disrespectful discussion in the locker room, he was proud to hear another student chime in to say that, hey, we shouldn't be saying that stuff. Now, whenever I tell people about Coaching Boys into Men, they always say, that's awesome for the boys. What about the girls? It was really hard to find funding to do something similar with girls. We had a lot of good ideas and plans, and we had the perfect infrastructure because we were already set up to do this same work with boys through Coaching Boys into Men. But we were not able to implement it because there simply is not a lot of funding out there for prevention. Prevention can be harder to understand and grab hold of than what folks are used to funding, which is how to intervene after the damage has been done. As a society, we're often much better at helping out after the fact. What saved the day for us finally was the Family Violence Prevention Grant, or the FX grant, from Cal OES, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. I'm extremely happy to tell you that we're now able to implement a program for high school-age girls called Athletes as Leaders that was designed as the companion program to Coaching Boys into Men. And even though that grant just started, we already have a girls volleyball team and a roller derby team on board to implement the Athletes as Leaders program. We're extremely grateful for this funding and for the foresight and the commitment from the legislature that has made this possible, because we simply could not do this work without this funding from Cal OES. And that's another lesson that I learned in my time at CDC. I learned that state funding is essential for the success of violence prevention efforts. Without these funds, there is just very little financial support for violence prevention, and particularly for sexual and domestic violence prevention. Even that great CDC funding, which we talked about a little bit here today, which is wonderful, is less than $6 million nationwide. It only funds 10 states, and we're lucky that California is one of them. But each of those 10 states are limited to working with that funding in only 2 communities. So that funding is a great start, but it's not, and really not intended to be, all-encompassing. And I'm actually happy to answer more questions about that later if you like. But you know, often it's easier for funders to understand paying for nights at the shelter or childcare, you know, those things that feel more immediate and feel more tangible. And I really understand personally why it feels good to fund those things, and those things are absolutely vital. But as we look down the road, if we want to reach a day where we no longer have to fund shelters, to a future where no one has to leave home because they're being terrorized by someone who claims to love them, we have to invest now in prevention. Funding prevention is a smart, long-term investment, and it is an investment in our children, in our communities, and in our future. Thank you.